What's up, my dudes? Those damn dragons backs, am I right? uh, they can be some of the most frustrating things in this entire game besides the whoops. And I know that so many people with dragons back sections, they just can't seem to figure it out whatsoever. But I mean, it's up there on the difficult level and the frustration level. Like it's pretty much just as hard as hitting whoops because you're basically hitting whoops, but they're just like whoops going up a jump phase pretty much. That's what a dragon's back is. So, I mean, they're pretty much just as difficult, but there's just kind of a certain technique to hitting them that, and the thing about that is they're all so different. I feel like whether you're on like an older track or a newer track, there's a little bit of a different skill, I feel like, to actually hitting dragons backs that make them so difficult, if you can understand what I'm saying. Like, it's not as easy as just like hitting a main triple, because all main triples are somewhat the same, but like with a dragon's back, there's just so much room for variation on how it's actually built, and any one little mistake that you make on your actual how you're actually hitting it with your throttle control and stuff, that makes so much difference on how the bike is going to react on it, just because of that's just the way they are, so I think that alone what makes it super difficult for people. But with dragons backs, let me just, no bullshit, give you the most important aspect right here. Okay, it's all about, like, you've got to make sure you're hitting your front tire on one of the whoops of the dragon's back. You don't just want to go up to it like you're just going to skim across every single one of them. You almost want to, like, in your mind anyways, you almost want to like jump into it and then come off of one of the whoops of the dragon's backs. Like, you want to, see if I can explain this properly. Like, see how I'm kind of jumping to that one, and then that's allowing me to basically, where it turns it into more of a jump than like a going up a whoop section uphill. You're almost turning it more into like a jump rhythm. You want to try to get it to where you're perfectly coming off of that very last one. That's kind of mainly what you normally try to do on them, is you're trying to either jump or skim to the point where the front wheel is going right down right before the very last whoop of the dragon's back, and then you're just going to come off that last one kind of like it's a jump, and it's going to feel almost like a kicker at certain points in time depending on what kind of section you're on. But that's what you always have in your mind. Okay, you've always got it where you're just trying to hit that last one just like that. And sometimes you're going to get on these tracks here where there's like a lot of what a dragon's back can differentiate in how you're hitting it is what comes after it, or what comes before it, for that matter. So on this particular section, you've got a dragon's back to another dragon's back. Sons of bitches. This ain't no joke here, bro. Like, 2 dragon's backs in a row, that's got to be one of the hardest types of sections in this game, period. Or in real life, or any kind of supercross riding just in general. That's got to be one of the hardest type of sections, because you've got 2 of the most hardest sections put back to back, basically. Now, well, theoretically they're not back to back. They're like one going one way and another one right after it going the same way. Now, if you had 2 of them back to back, it wouldn't really be that difficult, because you would like come through here and you would just make sure you jump off this one and you would jump over every single one of the other ones. You know what I mean? If it was like a dragon's back going up and then one going down right after it, you would just jump over all those ones going down. So that wouldn't be very difficult. But what makes it difficult is when you have 2 of them going the same direction. So you're having to hit a dragon's back going up and then land in another one going up and be able to come off that one as well. So that's what makes it so tricky, because then you've got oh shit, I didn't even realize this one's got 2 dragon's backs going up and then one going down after it. But the one going down God dang, dude, what a rhythm section. 3 dragon's backs in a row. I actually forgot about this little last one over here. So what makes this so tricky is the fact that there's a gap between the end of the second dragon's back right here and the start of the third one. That's what makes it so difficult, because now you're not jumping so much as just right over all the dragon's backs going down, but you're jumping into them going down, because there's actually somewhat of a gap there. So that's what makes it super tricky, but you just have to get in your mind like what the best sort of rhythm is that you're going to hit through it. I mean, you really do sort of jump through it like it's almost like it's a rhythm section. You don't want to be like really thinking too much about skimming it. You know, that is very rare for me to ever have in my mind. I mean, I may accidentally do it from lap to lap, but I never usually think in my mind like, okay, I'm going to skim this dragon's back, because when you start trying to skim, then it makes it twice as dangerous, and it makes it to where you get that weird like whoop kick before you come off of the face of it. Now, sometimes whenever you're getting into a super professional level and you're trying to kick it up a notch, sometimes you have to do that to actually go faster on it, you know, versus like just coming in here and kind of slow jumping through it. If you're slow jumping through it, then you may not necessarily be going quite the gnarly pace that you have to do well on it. So to really get those fast lap times. So it just all depends. There's certain levels that you hit for your certain skill level, just like anything on a supercross track. You know, it's kind of like going from doubling in to tripling in. Well, like a lot of people, just being able to get over that dragon's back is a big thing, not even being able to jump out of it. So like if you're like a beginner or intermediate, you know, for you, probably just being able to get over this thing right here and like roll over it like that is pretty good. You know, it's probably pretty good for you to be able to do that. But once you start getting into like the top tier intermediate and you start stepping into that pro realm, now you're going to have to start jumping out of all these little weird sections. You're going to have to hit everything you can possibly hit on the bike, basically. No matter how difficult it is, if that bike can potentially hit it, you're probably going to have to hit it in a pro race, especially on a 450, you know? So you're just going to have to get it in your head like, okay, I just got to balls up and do it. You're just going to have to try it. And the luxury of MX Simulator is the fact that you're not going to break any bones doing that. So, you know, who cares if you crash on it a couple times? That's what you have to do to learn anything in this game. You just got to learn how that bike's going to react. Got to learn how it's going to pop off of some of those. It's going to give you a bit of a kicker feeling, and that's normal for a dragon's back because you're basically jumping through angled whoops. So, like, you could just imagine, you know, that's going to give you a bit of a kicker feeling, but you start to get more comfortable with that kicker feeling and being able to actually control the bike into that kicker feeling. And that's how you master dragon's backs in this game. So basically, let me get a little bit more into the actual technique of it. I kind of explained what you do and how, like, what you're looking for and stuff like that. But now I'm going to try to explain what you actually do on the bike. So this is all changed by all your different settings with your vertical springs, horizontal springs, rider mass distribution, pretty much everything. I mean, your stability, all this stuff makes a big difference on this. I feel like the more loose you have your setup, the easier it's going to be for like a certain section, kind of weird, janky section like a dragon's back section, especially a dragon's back to another dragon's back. The more loose you have the setup, the easier it is to do that, because when you do get a kicker off of one of these dragons, it's going to allow you to like regain control of your bike in the air. Now, with all that control becomes a lot more responsibility with it too. You know, if you got more movement, then there's more ability to just completely Larry loop out or fly over on the other lane of the track or whatever. But if you have like, let's just say you have it way too close to stock on like your rider mass distribution or your vertical spring or whatever, then whenever you come up here and hit one of these kickers, it's not going to allow you to have enough movement on the bike to really be able to get through a section like this properly. So, but that's something that you work up over time. So it's another one of those elements where it's just going to be a very difficult section to learn when you're a beginner, because it's as if your bike is not even like ready for it yet until you get more of like I would say more of like a intermediate to beginner tier pro level or something like that, you know, then you may be getting your bike a little bit closer to being able to actually hit some of this stuff, and you have the mental capacity and skill in the game so far to actually be able to control it with all that movement at that current point in time. Then you can actually go in here and really learn this stuff. But like basically with this certain Dragon's Back section right here, the first one anyways, what I'm kind of doing in my mind is like, I'm like coming off of this first one. You can see the second one right here. It's actually pretty peaked up. Like it's a lot more peaked up than you might think. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of like blipping the throttle a little bit over the, I'm not just hitting it wide open. I mean, I'm coming through here and like going up to the first one, blipping right there, then jumping that over to that one, and then it allows you to kind of get through the rhythm. If I just came through there wide open, I'm going to have a lot more tendency for the front end to just drop over that thing, because you're going to get completely out of whack and you're not going to get the proper lift off of that last Dragon's Back. That's the whole key to Dragon's Backs. You know, you're trying to land in that last one perfect so that you get the right amount of takeoff there. And you can actually hit a super big daddy line right here if you hit it hard enough, where you can jump from the last Dragon's Back of the first Dragon's Back section all the way to the last Dragon's Back of the second Dragon's Back section. So you skip all of the first three in the second one, and you just like jump, and then jump to the very last third section of the Dragon's Back. So basically you're just hitting like a double through the whole thing. So let me see if I can do it. It's been quite a while. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I kind of forgot the exact way to do it, but there is a really big quad right there. I don't know. Let me see if I can do it. It's been a minute since I've rode on this track for sure. So I know you got to have a lot of speed to do it. I don't know if that's the exact... Oh, yeah. Let me just spin out real quick. Yeah, Spencer, you're so professional, dog. Okay, let's see. Whoa, see? Right there. Okay, you can see I made it to it, but I was like completely sideways. So you can do it, but you just got to kick it up a gear, basically. And that allows you to not jump to the third one of the second Dragon's Back, but all the way to the start of the fourth one. And that's how you just do, like, just jump, and you're not having to really skim any. But, like, if I come in here and go just like this and jump, say I'm jumping to the one before it, and I can still jump over, but I'm not jumping all the way to that one, the actual fourth one of it. I was only jumping to the third Dragon's Back whoop of the second whoop section. I know that can get confusing, but stick with me here, boys. Okay, so yeah, you just got to have a lot of momentum. There we go, baby. See, like that right there? That's how you go pretty quick over it. So, you know, there's levels to it and there's tiers to it on how fast you're actually hitting the thing. So, but there's usually like a consistent way to do it and a really gnarly way to do it. And that I just showed you like the really gnarly way to do it. The consistency way is kind of like this right here. You know, you're not jumping all the way to that one, and it's still probably just as close to being as fast. But like, what happens when you jump all the way to the fourth one of the second Dragon's Back, if you hit it perfect, it actually allows you to oh, I'm not gonna be able to do it right here, even though it's way more risky. It allows you to jump smooth over that third Dragon's Back downside, if I'm not mistaken. If you hit it hard enough, it allows you to jump clear over all of this, so you don't get into any of these whoops right here, and you land like right here. So pretty much you basically skip the entire whoop aspect of all three of those Dragon's Back, except the first one, kind of, sort of. You know, you're kind of having to hop through that a little bit, but you're skipping that entire element in the complete second Dragon's Backs, where if you come through here and roll, then you're hitting all of the whoops of the second one. You can see how much momentum that would be killing. And then, well, I mean, you can kind of jump over them here if you roll that, but like if you're only doing like that sort of safe line like I was telling you, let me show you real quick right here. Okay. Let's get over here. If you're hitting like this right here, whoops, kind of messed up a little bit, but if you land, you would basically be landing in the downside of those and then be losing momentum from that, the whoops of that third downside Dragon's Back. But if you were hitting that crazy line like I was telling you, the only real whoop aspect of it that you'd be hitting is right here at the beginning, and you'd be skipping over all of those other ones. and that just saves so much momentum. I mean, when you can like skip whoops like that, oh dude, it's insane. But yeah, so as far as your actual leaning, it's really, I mean, it's kind of like you're hitting whoops in a certain sense. You know, you don't want to overcorrect. You don't want to get too crazy with it. But I think that's a good way to like work up to hitting dragons backs. Is you just want to treat them as like jumps. Don't treat them so much as like a weird section that you don't know how to hit it, or like a whoop section. You know, you want to treat it more like it's jumps when you're first getting into it, and that'll allow you to kind of wrap your mind around the section. And then when you start getting really, really fast and you're actually railing it around this corner, then you're just kind of hitting it real hard like that, and then you can wad up like that. So yeah, when you start getting into the real advanced techniques of it, then it is sort of like you're hitting it like a whoop section. You know, you're just kind of wide open to a certain extent, and letting the bike really do somewhat of the work, but you're still looking for that last one. You know, you're still trying to kind of come off that last one perfectly, and that's what you're trying to do there. So regardless of how you're hitting it, you're always looking for that last whoop of the dragon's back. You're always trying to come off of that one properly. And if you always keep that in your mind, you should be okay. You know, I feel like a lot of people, they don't really know what they're doing, and they come in here and they might jump off of like the second to last one. And well, then you've got the chance of skimming your back wheel on the very last one, and then it'll just instantly kick you over. Like they'll come to this one and then try to jump, or whatever the case may be, or they'll just try to wheelie over the second, third, and fourth one, or whatever. And but even if you do that, even if you go through them like a whoop section, you're still looking for that last one. That's what I'm saying. You're always keeping that in your mind, kind of like how you're looking at a whoop section. You know, when you go up to that, like you're looking at, if you're going into a whoop section really hard, odds are you're probably not looking at that. I say the first whoop, even though there is one whoop that's like half as big as the rest that's at the very beginning of a whoop section. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about when they actually, it's technically usually the second whoop when they really get the normal size of the whoops. You're usually not looking at that one when you're going really fast. You're looking like 2 or 3 down whoops. And that's the same case right here. You're not really looking at the first 3 when you're going that fast. You're looking at the very last 4th one of the dragon's back there. And that's how you get up off of it. But obviously you're kind of leaning forward when you're going into it, so you don't just flip right over, because it is a uphill type of obstacle. So obviously you don't want to be like just leaning back the whole way up, or you're just going to flip over and lose control. You know, I would say like, and that's how you get a little bit more of that natural pop off of the last dragon's back, is you're basically leaning forward and then leaning back at the very end. You know, that's how you get that real pop like that right there. You don't just want to be going into it like not leaning at all, or leaning back over the whole thing. You don't want to treat it like it's a whoop section on reflex or something. You know, you don't just want to be leaning back over the entire, oh baby, there's that big line, like that. You know, you want to give it a little bit more respect than that, and then you should be good with it. But it's just like anything. The more you do it, the more you learn it, the better you get at the game, the better you get at every aspect of the game, the better you get at leaning on the bike, controlling the throttle, figuring out how, you know, you don't want to just be like all throttle through the whole thing, or you can't really control it. You got to kind of blip it through certain areas, and your brain just learns where to blip the throttle at. That's what's so cool about it. Over like weird sections like this, your brain just learns how to do that. It learns like, okay, let off just a little bit right there, and then I can hop over this, and let off just a little bit right there, and I hop over this, and then, so that's kind of what you do there. But you always got to remember, it's just like whoop sections in the sense of it's all about momentum. So if you come into it with no momentum, it's going to be hard to actually jump up off of it. You got to have a certain level of momentum for any Supercross section, you know. So that's just another aspect to always remember about it. But either way, hope this video helps some of you guys out. I have all of my playlist on my front page, including my MX Simulator Guide playlist. I got quite a few on there, so definitely go check that out. But appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.